Hey everyone, please support what I do to help keep Greyhawk alive by subscribing to the channel. Also, please consider becoming a channel member to get early access to videos, exclusive live chats, quarterly adventure modules, and more. Thanks, and enjoy the show. So I was going through the Dungeon Master's Guide the other day, and I happened across the section on artifacts and relics. And I thought it would be interesting to kind of go through that list and see which ones are explicitly brought into the world of Greyhawk. So that's what we're going to talk about today on Greyhawk Grognard. So, the old Dungeon Master's Guide is full of all kinds of great stuff, and one of the most evocative things in the book is the listing and descriptions of the artifacts and relics that are both in the world of Greyhawk and could be in any campaign setting. And I just wanted to go through them a little bit. It starts off with the Axe of the Dwarvish Lords, which doesn't really have an explicit a Greyhawk connection that I'm aware of. It's one of those things. It's generic in its origin. Then we have the Baba Yaga's hut. Now, Baba Yaga's hut obviously originates in Slavic folklore. Baba Yaga is the witch of famous witch. It's brought into the world of Greyhawk kind of obliquely because it is rumored there's kind of a connection between Igwilv, the Witch Queen, and Baba Yaga. So by that extension, you can say that Baba Yaga's hut is actually part of the world of Greyhawk. Codex of the Infinite Planes, according to this book, is explicitly connected to Greyhawk because it was last known to be on the Isles of Woe, which are in the Near Dive. So it specifically says it's connected to a part of the geography of Earth. So the Codex of the Infinite Planes, which obviously you keep turning pages and you can do things with different planes. It's a really cool thing. Crown of Might is just kind of a generic thing. Crystal of the Ebon Flame, again, a generic one. Then we come to the Cup and Talisman of Alakbar. This one, these two, are also explicitly connected to Greyhawk because they're explicitly connected to the Baklunish lands. And in fact, in the book, it specifically says that the Cup and Talisman were last known to be in the Bandit Kingdoms. So again, this is one where we actually see that connection drawn out explicitly, and it's interesting that this book came out right before the World of Greyhawk, the folio. So it's likely that these references are to a kind of maybe a draft version of that, because I think and I might be wrong, but I know the Bandit Kingdoms were in Gygax's original campaign. But some of the references that we see, Gygax's campaign was not the same in form as the one that was published. So it's interesting to kind of see what the early references are to kind of get an idea of are we looking at kind of the draft of the published one? Are we looking at a kind of cleaned up version of the original one? It would be really cool to try to go through that. The Eye and Hand of Vecna. Obviously, Vecna keeps showing up over and over and over in the world of Greyhawk. So those are the original ones that you know about. Heward's Magical Organ. This is actually one of my favorite ones, and I featured it in my adventure module Musicland. Heward's Magical Organ is obviously connected to the world of Greyhawk because of Heward, who is a quasi deity or hero deity or one of those two, connected with music, obviously. Now, we never really find out officially where the organ is in the world of Greyhawk, but it's so massive, it's not the kind of thing that can be really moved around a lot, except by magic. So, it's one of those things, though, that I particularly like it. I'm not musically inclined myself at all, but I love the idea of using music in my adventures and stuff in game. So that's always a good one. Then we come to the Invulnerable Coat of Arnd. As far as I know, this is another generic one. It's not been really brought in. The Iron Flask of Turney the Merciless is an interesting one, though. This is originally it didn't have a specific connection to the world of Greyhawk, but then it was brought into the world of Greyhawk with the module Return of the Eight, because Tourney and the Iron Flask actually have a very big role in that module. So this is one of those instances where a kind of, it could be anywhere, artifact was pulled into the setting very explicitly, which is cool. The Jacinth of Inestimable Beauty is another one that is explicitly brought into the world of Greyhawk. This is actually pretty cool. Legend relates that the Jacinth was possessed by the fabled Sultan Jehef Perrine for a time, and then was passed into the land of Ket and southward into Kaoland, where all trace disappeared. Jehef Perrine is obviously a reference to Jeff Perrin, one of the earliest people in TSR. Joides Mask is another one that's kind of generic. Kuroth's Quill is an interesting one. It starts off generic, and later on in Dragon Magazine, it was kind of brought in, and Kuroth was made a hero a quasi-deity, kind of after the fact. So it's interesting. Again, though, you have to remember a lot of these things that happened in Dragon Magazine relating to the world of Greyhawk were done as part of the Living Greyhawk campaign. So you gotta, there's not necessarily, there are two different branches of Greyhawk, and that's one of them. The Mace of Cuthbert obviously is related to Saint Cuthbert of the Cudgel. He's said to leave his mace sometimes to aid good. The Machine of Lum the Mad. This is one that I really love, and it's really an interesting one. It's one of the technological. One of the technological artifacts that are in here. There's a couple like that are like robots and war machines and stuff like that. It was originally, there's no explicit connection to Greyhawk, but once again, in the unpublished and yet available officially book, Ivid the Undying, the Machine of Lum the Mad is brought in to the world of Greyhawk. So it's one of those things. It makes you think that many of these that weren't officially Greyhawk were probably considered to be Greyhawk by Gary and Rob back in the day, but there was the explicit connection was never made. The Mighty Servant of Leuk O is another one that is generic. There's no explicit tie, and yet it's named after Luke, who's obviously Gary's son, and it was also later retconned into the world of Greyhawk in Living Greyhawk Journal 1, I think, and Leuk O was turned into an Iridian leader. The Orbs of Dragonkind are fascinating because they start off generic, and later on they're kind of retconned into Dragonlance, and they're also found in the Forgotten Realms. And then later on still they're explicitly brought into Greyhawk. And Roger Moore, I think, wrote the article in Dragon for that, and he posits that there's just some connection between the orb as a form, as a platonic solid, and the control of dragons, because that might explain why campaign worlds in various different campaign worlds all have the same thing. I kind of think that's a cop-out, honestly. They all just happen to have their own Orbs of Dragonkind under slightly different names. It's like I kind of think that the whole point of artifacts is that there is only one of them. And the idea that we have multiple versions of the same thing. It's like in Loki, where there were Infinity Stones all over the place, and they were worthless. So it kind of cheapens it a little bit, I think, when you just do that. I would much rather have it be, maybe they started in Kryn, and they were later taken to other worlds, maybe split up. A couple are in Oerth, a couple are in Kryn, a couple are in Toril, that kind of thing. But officially, there is a version of the Orbs of Dragonkind in Greyhawk. The Orb of Might goes with the crown, and the scepter. Again, these are kind of generic. There's no explicit thing here. Queen Alessa's Marvelous Nightingale. This is a, if I recall correctly, let me make sure I'm reading this right. Yes, this is one that does have an explicit connection to Greyhawk because it mentions the goddess Jorami, who is the god of volcanoes. So, Sul goddess, I think. So this is one that has that explicit connection, kind of obliquely and subtly, which I really like. The Recorder of Ysinde. This is another one where it's kind of there is no explicit connection, but because it's named after one of Gygax's kids, Ysinde obviously is Cindy. And in the Book of Artifacts, they kind of pull it in to the world of Greyhawk. But the Book of Artifacts is I'm sorry. The Book of Artifacts maintains that kind of distance. It doesn't really pull it into any particular campaign world. But that was standard for the Book of Artifacts when it came out. But the fact that it does have that. That generic quality. So then the Ring of Gax. This is another one that's kind of generic, but again, it's kind of named after, has Gygax's name or a form of Gygax's name, so you got to take that into account. The Rod of Seven Parts. This is a great one. They made a big module about it. There was an RPGA module back in the early 80s, the Dwarven Quest for the Rod of Seven Parts. So this is one that you've seen a lot of over the years. And this is one that does have an explicit Greyhawk connection through that box set, the Rod of Seven Parts, and where they have the Wind Dukes and Mishka the Wolf Spider and all that stuff, that really deep lore that they bring in. So, and that was explicitly put into Greyhawk at that point, and the Battle of Pesh took place where the Rift Canyon is. So it's definitely very well seated within. The Sword of Kas obviously goes with Vecna and thus goes with Greyhawk. We actually see Kas in one of the later one of the later adventures with Vecna. Vecna is it? I forget which one. There were so many. I think it was the last one where they ported Vecna into Ravenloft or something, and we also get to see Kas in the in that graphic novel about Vecna, Hand of the Revenant, which if you can find it, good luck, but it's really cool, and it gives a lot of really cool stuff. The Teeth of Dalver Nar. This is another one that is generic, but it's also one of those that you kind of get the feeling it's just weird enough that it would be in the original campaign. Throne of the Gods is another one that is just kind of random, generic out there. And then the Wand of Orcus, which is very interesting because it doesn't have a specific Greyhawk connection, but obviously Orcus transcends all campaigns because he's out in the multiverse, so all the campaign settings that are in the Prime Material plane, they all could be visited by the Wand of Orcus. Now obviously there are a lot more artifacts connected to Greyhawk out there. There was a great article in Dragon long ago, back when it was still a print magazine, that listed all of them, things like the Orb of Golden Death and Black Razor and, those kinds of things, were invented obviously long after the original Dungeon Master's Guide was published. But anyway, I hope this quick overview was interesting, trying to keep a little more Greyhawk focus on the Thursday videos. Let me know what you think in the comments. Have you used any of these artifacts in the past? I've thrown a couple of them into my campaigns over the years. Sometimes they do tend to get a little overpowering, but they're still fun, and it's always neat to see the players' eyes light up when they realize that they have something out of the DM's guide, an artifact or a relic out of the DM's guide. So let me know. Have you used artifacts and relics in your Greyhawk campaign? Have you brought stuff in to your campaign from other worlds? What are your thoughts on the Orbs of Dragonkind? I'd love to hear. So anyway, hope you enjoyed this one. Hope to hear from you, and I will talk to you later. Thanks for watching today's video. Please remember to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. Below you'll find links to my Patreon, which helps make these videos possible. You'll also find the web store where you can buy my books, and my blog where you'll find all sorts of free downloads and other articles. Thanks, and have a great day.